Hi there. Before we get into today's interview, I want to talk real quickly to Christian business owners, decision makers, and church leaders. You know, Salem Media is known throughout the United States for its Christian teaching and conservative talk radio stations. Well, what many people do not know is that we are a full digital marketing company. We help both companies and ministries in the online space. We connect companies through digital marketing with new potential clients and customers. And we also connect churches with those people in their communities that should be in their pew on Sunday morning. So why not partner with a company that shares both your Christian beliefs and your conservative values? Why spend your marketing dollars with companies that do not share your values or many times are in opposition to them? So we want to help you with your goals. So reach me today. You can email me at patrickhoban@salemtc.com, or you can call me directly at 651-289-4412. We don't come in just as salespeople. We come in as consultants. We want to hear what you desire, what your objectives are, and then we strategize with a whole team of people to come up with a plan to help you achieve those goals. And if you're a church leader, we come up with a plan to help you connect with those people that God has ordained to be part of your church community. So reach me today, call me, email me. I would be happy to schedule a time that is convenient for you to see what we can do to help you with your marketing goals. Now, on to today's interview. God bless. Are you searching for a church to call home or a ministry to get involved with? Welcome to Ministry Connections. I'm Evangelist Patrick Hoban, your host and the local ministry director here at AM 980, The Mission. Each week we introduce you to a local church or ministry that is making an impact in the Twin Cities. Now you can listen to us on our YouTube and Facebook channels. Just look for AM 980 The Mission. Anyway, today we have with us Dan Adler of Heart of the City Ministries here in the Twin Cities. Welcome to the program, Dan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, just by being with him a wee bit, it's automatic that you know that he is a worship leader, artist kind of individual, but also very spiritual. Dan, for our listeners, tell us a little bit about your story. Where do you come from, and how in the world did you get involved in this type of ministry?
Well, I grew up in northern Wisconsin, up by Siren, Wisconsin, and started playing guitar in my little tiny country church when I was about 7th grade. And soon after that, started writing songs for some reason, and went on to Crown College, and I met my wife there. I formed a band when I was in my first band when I was in 10th grade.
10th grade?
Yeah, and we would travel. The Twin Cities had a lot of coffee houses back then, so we would drive 2 hours to the Twin Cities and perform almost every weekend somewhere, and for nothing, and play like 3-hour things and come back. And so that was a lot of motivation. That whole Jesus music movement was happening.
So
then.
that was during the Jesus movement, that era?
Yeah, that era. So I would have been, I graduated high school in 1979, so I'm old. But it was a great era. I went on to college, and this group went on. We recorded a couple albums, and I got out of college, and I wasn't sure I wanted to do music ministry in a church, because at that point it was a lot of choirs and things like that. I just didn't see it. Just wasn't working for me, and so I thought I would continue doing performing and things like that. But my wife and I began to kind of meld our music together. We had real different backgrounds, but we were working that together. But I worked Church of the Open Door. We visited, and they asked me the day I visited, "Would you be our music director?" And I'm like, wow, okay. And I had to rethink it, and basically it came down to that situation. They said, we like who you are, come be who you are here. which was my perfect job description.
Wow.
So I was able to have great freedom, and the church.
And what type of music was it at that time?
At that point, the church was doing hymns and some choruses. So there was kind of it was a traditional Christian and Missionary Alliance church with kind of a mixture of those two things.
Okay.
And I was on a journey to understanding what worship was. I just began really questioning, going, what are we doing with music? What's going on? And I literally went to a dictionary and came up. The dictionary said worship means to ascribe worth to bow down to, or give homage to something. And so I literally, after starting at the church, because I had people, we need more hymns, we need more choruses. I hate the hymns, I hate the choruses, all that stuff. That I thought, why did I take this job? I knew I didn't want to work in a church, and I just started to teach that. I said, this is what we're going to do. This is going to be worship. This is the definition, and it might be your favorite song, and it might not. And long story, but that was an epic experience. And it was about 350 people when I started, and it was about 5,000 people by the time I left.
Really?
11 years later, yeah. Actually,
and where was this church now?
Well, church it's in Crystal, Minnesota, is where it started. A little A-frame, Christian Missionary Alliance Church. We outgrew it. Went to Cooper High School. Outgrew that. Went to Robbinsdale High School, which was an empty school. Ended up going to the gymnasium 3 services a weekend. And we were still in there when I left. And then after I left, they bought a building. They built a building in Maple Grove. But it was incredible. I mean, the growth, it was literally like about 3,000 people.
And worship, true, authentic worship, was a catalyst for that growth.
It was part of it. It was part of it. It was an amazing mixture of, our pastor was an incredible teacher. We had a very interesting counseling pastor who was dealing with the recovery movement. There was no word for it back then.
Yeah.
But he was, and everybody was like coming alive and talking about dysfunctional families and codependency and shame-based systems. So all of these things melded together to have this explosive growth, and it was an incredible experience. About the last year and a half I was there, I also got hired by Promise Keepers.
Okay.
And so I traveled with them about 6 times a year, different cities, leading not the big stadium events, but there was leadership conferences, they called them. And
that was back in the 90s,
yes,
right?
the 90s. Yeah, in the 90s, yeah.
Because I had just come to the United States during that movement.
Okay, yeah, it was incredible experience. And I wasn't into men's ministry at all at that time, but I was really impacted by this. But the thing that really resonated with me was their emphasis on racial reconciliation as one of their promises. And I had always been bugged by the idea. I've always been bugged by denominationalism, and I've always been bugged by the racial divide. And I would come back from these big events where there's a wonderful mix of men across racial lines, and we come back to our white church or our black church, and it was literally January of 1995. We were doing a once a month extra service at Open Door called a celebration service, a big music night of just praise and worship and testimonies, and it was just growing. We had like 1,400 people showing up for just this night of that, and I was in this room. It was packed out in this gymnasium we were at, and I felt like my first thought was, I got to think of a bigger place to do this at, and I felt like the Lord would just spoke to me in a sense and said, you need to take this, use what you have and get outside the walls of this church and use it to bring the church together.
And that's where the ministry, Heart
of the City Ministries.
Heart of the City Ministries came
and I went home and told my wife, and thankfully she was like, yeah, let's, I don't want to just be a suburban housewife that's just doing this thing. Let's do what we can do. And so we did the scariest thing of our life in August of 1996, left that ministry, started a once a month gathering of worship and prayer, starting at the Minneapolis auditorium at the time. And started to do, our main thing at that time was do once a month gatherings of worship and prayer without starting a new church. Can we just get the church together? Can we pray together? And can we worship together? And we would do an urban pastor spotlight as well. Like a 10-minute thing. Tell us about your church.
Oh, awesome.
Where are you located? What's going on in your church? And we'd pray for them. We'd break up and pray for them. And we'd break up in the middle and we'd pray for the church and we'd pray for the lost. And we did that. We did that. Thousands of people came. Enormously hard though. Hard. War. I mean, just like, oh my goodness. Questioning my call 100 times, going, oh my goodness, this is hard. And but then at a point we had 2 of them a month that was happening, one in St. Paul, one in Minneapolis area. And then it started to fade back. But we put together this multi-ethnic band called the Heart of the City Band to lead this, because we didn't want tokenism if we're going to try to bring people together. Yeah. So our band literally ultimately had 11 different ethnicities in it, called the Heart of the City Band, and that group is what led it with all this diverse styles of music. And And over time, that the gatherings, people came out less and less for gatherings, and we, questioned, should we quit? But it was like, no. Now it morphed into the Heart of the City band being kind of a prophetic model. So going from churches and different places where we bring a message, a model, and an experience of multi-ethnic worship and biblical
And
unity.
what does it look like, and make it practical for people to maybe do that.
So we're going to talk about this. We're going to model it by what you see.
Yeah.
And we're going to have songs you can sing with us. So you don't just go, we watch the ethnically diverse group and then they're done and now we're back to us again. And kind of our goal was like the us and them, we want to make the us bigger. And their music and our music, we want to make our music broader.
Yes, indeed.
And needing that exposure to make that happen. And so we've been doing it for almost 30 years now.
It's interesting because, as I visit churches, when I planted a church in Chicago, we never set out to be multi-ethnic, but we became multi-ethnic.
That's great.
Very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Because the gospel appeals to everybody,
Yeah, that's
right?
That's right.
And it was kind of fun because sometimes we put in a Latin beat in there.
Yeah.
And we just had a good time with it.
Yeah.
And maybe it was because I was Irish and I was kind of an immigrant myself, and I
Right.
attracted a whole bunch of people that
Yeah.
felt safe. You know?
Yeah, like you already feel like you're a person of diversity.
Yes,
because
indeed.
of that. Yeah,
But the gospel appeals to everybody. But now, as we go forward, the churches that I go to, there is really a huge multi-ethnic, diverse element to many of the churches here in the Twin Cities.
It's really changed. And it's changed in a way that I didn't expect, which is a good thing because musically it hasn't changed much. The music is still white. You're going to hear Bethel music and Hillsong's music and the same stuff that kind of.
Although I go to a little gospel church on 38th Street.
Okay.
And that is Aretha Franklin style.
Oh, there you go.
Music.
Oh, lovely. Oh, lovely. Well, you don't find that in the large churches. It's
Yeah.
like it's kind of a cookie cutter formula thing, and that still disappoints me because I feel like it's still kind of a bit of a statement about this is the music that is in the church and it's going to be led by this majority group. And we find when we do this diverse music, it's amazing to see people when it's kind of their heart language.
Yes, I hear you.
They come alive. Even though they'll certainly learn all the other good songs, and those other songs are good, and it's lovely that everyone is doing them together. But it's a bigger statement when you can go, we do a Latin song, and all of a sudden, oh, there it is. Or we were at one ethnically diverse church, and we do this Bhangra song, which is East Indian Punjab area kind of thing, and it has this cool group kind of.
Yeah, I know. I did some ministry in India, so I know how it goes. Yeah.
So we kicked into that song, and they had a Bhutanese congregation there, and I didn't know anything about Bhutan, but it's on the border of
That's
India.
right. Yeah.
And so and as soon as we kicked into that thing, the pastor
dancing.
leaped out of the aisle, arms,
Started
and the
dancing.
whole congregation was in the aisles dancing. It came alive, and they
Yes,
made us
they
sing the
do.
song several
That's what
times
they
because
do.
of that.
And they're great dancers.
Oh yeah,
The Indians are fantastic dancers.
Oh, yeah.
I think one of the areas that broke that, the ice on that, was the Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir. I think.
Yes.
Very much so, I think. In
they were
New
doing a
York.
great job, but then that kind of just went away. That whole, you don't hear about them anymore, and you don't hear that kind of music being played. That it was popular for a little while. It was almost like, okay, the church is going to kind of stretch, and they were kind of a good bridge, musical, gospel music that white people could pull off, and
We don't have the rhythm maybe as well.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, Dan, practical testimonies of what you've seen happen. So here's what I've found when I came to America first. And the Irish are kind of exposed to everybody because we've traveled all around the world, right? But what I found is that people that grew up in their own ethnic thing, they had a strange opinion about somebody else from an ethnic background until they came to a church with all these multi-ethnic people in there.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh my goodness, they might have a slightly different culture, but they're just human just like me.
Yeah.
Give us a testimony in the last couple of minutes here while we have of how you've seen that happen.
Well, we've seen a lot of people tell us about that whole dynamic. Where you've come from kind of a vacuum of the people just like me, which is great. But you're getting this even the music going. That song touched me like no other song before. When we do like some Native American style music, and we have had people literally like going, "What in the world was that?" And one person during my wife was playing Native American flute, and they testified afterwards that they got healed a long-term thing during while she was instrumentally playing.
Isn't that something?
And that's not a big emphasis of what we do, but yeah, we've heard many people feel like the walls are breaking down in my mind and in my prejudices, even as I'm learning to appreciate these different styles and these different people, hearing their testimonies and doing these different styles of music that can express something that something else can. It's like we get the full palette.
Yes, the full palette. And I think that's it. Like, the expression, other people's expression. When I was in India, I love that tabla.
Yes.
It's brilliant. And man, when we started worshiping out there, you might see a couple of thousand people start worshiping.
Yeah.
It was just unbelievable,
Yes.
Tell everybody, how can they get connected with your ministry, Dan?
Yeah, our website is heartofthecity.org. And we also have, actually I didn't even mention this, but we have a music venue in Anoka now called the Heart of the City Music Factory. And we regularly host mostly Christian concerts and then some secular family-friendly shows as well. And that's another great outlet for people to get in on Christian music ministry.
And if a pastor wanted to connect with you, how could he do that?
He could just go to our website and get our email and email me from there.
Mention the website again.
heartofthecity.org.
And if you wanted to encourage somebody out there who's feeling like, I want to break into different cultures, what would you say to them?
I think we have to listen and learn and try to go, what little steps can we take out to reach out to others and acknowledge that they're there?
Absolutely. Fantastic. Dan, thank you for coming today. I think it's going to be a great encouragement for other people out there. God is breaking down walls. There's something mighty happening in the Twin Cities through churches, worship, and everything else. Thank you for listening to us today. This is Ministry Connections with your host, Patrick Hoban. Check us out on YouTube and Facebook. Just look for AM 980, The Mission. And until next time, God bless you.